Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again to join us on our weekly journey that we call Living Hope, designed to provide hope, inspiration, and education for those living with pancreatic cancer, sharing the real-life stories of those really affected by this deadly disease and how they deal with it on a daily basis. With our host, I won't say she knows the most, but she knows more than I do, that's for sure here, Roberta Luna. Welcome.
Thank you, Paul. It seems like every time we do one of these, I learn a little bit more too. So I guess we're never too old to learn, right?
Yeah, and today you brought on, we're just doing the pre-show, you brought up a couple of things I never heard before. So stay tuned, folks. You're going to hear some interesting facts and stats about pancreatic cancer here in this show. Who'd you bring back this week?
Today we have with us Cindy Gavin from Let's Win Pancreatic Cancer. She's the founding executive director, and she brings over 30 years of professional experience in the nonprofit and financial service fields.
And today she's calling in, so you'll see an empty seat there. We should put a picture of her up there or something, but she's just calling in today. Where's she calling in from here today?
I'm calling in from New York.
New York, okay. How's it in New York today here? It's going to rain today in Southern California, so we're very depressed today here.
Maybe that's the problem.
It's really cold. We've taken a little bit of a cold turn here, but hopefully we're going to be warming up again.
Roberta just broke my mic here, so.
What did I
On air, Roberta just broke the microphone here.
Well,
so.
I've pulled out the cords and broken the camera, so why not do
I
the
literally
mic
have
too?
to have guards escort her into the studio so she doesn't break anything.
I think we're going to have to start doing that. I don't even know what I did.
I don't know what you do either, but it looks better, okay.
Are you sure it's not Monday?
It could be. Mondays are a rough day for Roberta. But.
Apparently they are. Anyway,
All right.
Cindy, thank you for joining us today. I'm really happy to have you. It's November is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, so I think this is a perfect subject that we're going to be talking about so that we can let people know, more about it and get some information. And again, I really appreciate you being here today. I know we don't like to really talk about the statistics and hear them, but I think they're really important. So what are the pancreatic cancer statistics?
So roughly 64,000 people in the United States each year will hear the words, "you have pancreatic cancer." And unfortunately, the survival rate, while it's definitely on the rise, I think when Let's Win launched, the survival rate, the 5-year survival rate was at a mere 5%, and now it's at roughly 12%, and it increases each year. The average rate of occurrence in the United States is about 13%, but sadly in the Black community, it's closer to 16%. The one thing that's talked about, more recently is that pancreatic cancer is projected to be the second leading cause of cancer death in the United States by the year 2030. And people ask why that may be. I mean, there are more people in the United States that get breast or prostate or colon or lung cancer, but because this disease is typically, and we're going to talk about this, because this disease is typically caught at a later stage, the survival rate and the percentage of people diagnosed that do not make it are way higher and certainly on the rise.
You mentioned that the Black community has a high rate. What do we know? Why is that?
Unfortunately, the answer is at this time there's no definitive reason. However, they may correlate to some lifestyle issues or lifestyle related matters that contribute to an increased risk of pancreatic cancer.
And as far as I know, a lot of times when I'm talking to somebody, we be talking about pancreatic cancer, but I know in the past, like my doctors even and others have said that pancreatic cancer is a rare cancer. Can you explain to me why they consider it rare? When I'm talking, like I said, I'm talking to so many people, and it seems like everybody has a connection somewhere. So why are we saying that it's a rare cancer?
Yeah, it's really it's about the numbers. Just as I was saying, it seems rare, 64,000, like versus maybe breast cancer, where it's closer to 300,000 people a year that are diagnosed. So I think just based on the number of people that get pancreatic cancer versus other cancers, it is rarer, but because of the stage at which people are getting it, it hardly can be considered rare, because you're right, we hear more and more of someone we know and love passing from this very deadly disease.
Do you think is pancreatic cancer more on the rise? I mean, why now are we hearing so much about it? As far as like when we talk to somebody, is it more on the rise, or just because people are understanding and knowing more about it now?
I think it's twofold. I think other cancer survival rates are on the rise. So I think that when you look at percentage wise how many people we lose to pancreas cancer, if the survival rate is 12% 5 years, we're losing 88% of the population. I think some other factors are at play. People are living longer. And when you think about the average age of when people are diagnosed with pancreas cancer, it's roughly around 70 years old. So I think as we have an aging population and people are living longer, we're seeing more pancreas cancer. I think that's a factor. I also think that, again, it always goes back to screening. You know, when we think about the other cancers, let's say breast or prostate or colon, there are standard of care screening mechanisms that are the protocols, right? So you get a mammography or you get a PSA or a colonoscopy. There's nothing like that for pancreas cancer that's today standard of care. So, I think that that's playing a big factor of why we're hearing more and more people getting a diagnosis with pancreas cancer.
Why is the survival rate so low? Is it because we don't get early detection, or what are some of the reasons why survival rate is so low?
Well, first let's start with where the pancreas is. I think most people don't even know what the pancreas is or where it is until it's problematic. It's located deep in the body. So, unlike breast, the tumor can't be felt on a physical exam. The other challenge with pancreatic cancer is that the symptoms are vague, and they often are similar to other less serious conditions, backache, stomach pain, nausea. These are the type of things that you wouldn't automatically jump to pancreatic cancer because they could be many, many other things. The reason the survival rate is so low is because nearly 50% of people are diagnosed stage 4, where the disease has already spread. And at that point in a stage 4 diagnosis, the tumor is not operable. And really the only effective way to cure the disease is to remove the tumor. And only about 20% of people are eligible for surgery, which is called the Whipple. So with a population of only 20% being eligible for surgery, that really is a big contributing factor to the survival rate. And then, of course, like we said, there's no standard of care screening, and I know there's a lot being done to develop screening mechanisms for this disease and other cancers, but pancreatic cancer could really use a good screening mechanism.
Why haven't they been able to develop like a blood test? Like I remember years ago, like for prostate cancer, it was only through a physical exam, but now they have a blood test that can tell you very early. Why haven't we been able to do something like that for pancreatic cancer?
I mean, they're working on biomarkers that would be indicative of the cancer earlier. There are quite a few blood tests in development that are picking up like a myriad of cancers. But with pancreas cancer, it's often showing up late stage, which of course is contributing to the outcomes. So there's a lot of work, Roberta, being put into early detection, and I really believe that in the next couple of years we're going to see some real breakthroughs in this area.
I know you talked about where the pancreas is located, making it, and that's why it's so hard to detect early. But a lot of people, like you say, we don't even know what the pancreas is. We don't even think about it until we have a problem. What does the pancreas do?
Well, the pancreas helps you, the enzymes help you digest food. And as we know, the pancreas also has a lot to do with managing our sugar. So when you hear about diabetes being a challenge, it's your pancreas not functioning properly as it relates to providing you energy and being able to be a source of sugar.
I want to talk a little bit about the risk factors, but I know one of the things that has come out recently is late stage diabetes. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so just actually talking about this at lunch. So, they are seeing a correlation with new onset diabetes. So someone typically over 50 that newly gets diagnosed with diabetes, and they have unintended weight loss. Those two in combination really may be a signal that your pancreas is not functioning properly, and it may be like an early measure of pancreas cancer. Because what we've heard is that sometimes people, especially with those two, a new onset diagnosis with diabetes and then this unintentional weight loss, a couple of years later, people get pancreas cancer. So knowing that correlation could really help us with certain patients get ahead and catch the disease much earlier.
So if somebody goes in and they get a diagnosis of being diabetic and they're in their, out over 50 or over, should they ask the doctor or request that they be checked for pancreatic cancer?
100%. That's one of the, when we talk about people that are at higher risk, we don't want to pump fear in the system. I think the statistic is 1 in 67 people with new onset diabetes will develop pancreatic cancer. So we don't want to get everybody up in arms, but knowledge is power, and we want people to know. So if you are diagnosed with late stage diabetes, just to be aware, speak to your doctor, know some of the other symptoms of pancreas cancer so that you can be your own advocate and your doctor could help you better monitor if you could be at higher risk for developing the disease.
You brought up the symptoms. What are some of the symptoms of pancreatic cancer?
Sure, some of the symptoms are, like other common symptoms of other less serious ailments: back pain, stomach pain, nausea after eating, any pain after eating, maybe losing an appetite, unexplained weight loss. Jaundice is one that I typically hear about, the yellowing of the skin. But often once the skin is yellowed and you have jaundice, the disease is typically late stage. So we're really trying to educate populations at higher risk so that we don't get to the point where people are that far along before they connect the dots between the fact that, wait, maybe these symptoms may be something more serious.
You mentioned like back pain, stomach pain, nausea. Those, like you say, are very common. So how long do you think somebody should experience this before they really get concerned and start asking the doctor about pancreatic cancer?
Yeah, I think it depends on many factors. I think that those at higher risk are someone with a family history of pancreatic cancer, people that have a genetic disposition. Maybe they've inherited a genetic mutation that increases their risk of the disease. Someone, like I said, with diabetes. That population of people that are at higher risk should be much more attuned to some of these risk factors. But knowledge can really help anybody, because if you have something persistent going on, if it was me or my family member, I wouldn't want to waste any time if something persists and they really can't get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, well, I think we have a tendency, especially when you're dealing like with backache sometimes or even nausea, is just putting it off as something else. And like you said, it's something that really should be considered, very soon, because the longer we wait, the less, the more chance of it spreading. It was like with my mom, she had chronic pancreatitis for years before she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So my concern is always, like I said, we tend not to take these things seriously. I think the last thing we all think about, especially doctors as well, is that it could be pancreatic cancer. What what are some other risk factors we should be concerned about?
Yeah, so there's two buckets of risk factors. The ones that I just talked about, including chronic pancreatitis, um, are those that we can't control, right? We can't control our family history. Luckily, we live to get older. We can't control our genetic disposition, but there are some lifestyle factors that we can control. So, tobacco use, obesity, and excessive use of alcohol are all factors that really can contribute to a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. And those are in our control. So we can't control the genes we inherit, but we certainly control our behavior, regarding, food, alcohol, and tobacco use.
There was a lot of times I've spoken with patients or survivors, and they talk about a depression, and this is before diagnosis. Do we know why some patients or some people are depressed or have anxiety before being diagnosed? I mean, I understand, depression afterwards, but some of them experienced it beforehand. Do we know what causes that?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of research being done, Roberta, now, because that is something that people have said. My family member was depressed, and we didn't know why and where this came from, and that's under study. I don't have any definitive reasons why, what the correlation is between, it's brain, right? It's the brain malfunctioning in conjunction with your pancreas. I mean, the brain is pretty powerful, and if it just, to me, it just feels like the brain is reacting to the deficiencies in the pancreas, and causing depression. But I don't have a definitive answer. That's just my intuitive, response to just knowing a little bit more about depression. But I think there's a lot of studies going on. And again, Roberta, just to what we talked about a little while ago about, people would not, again, jump to pancreatic cancer necessarily if someone is feeling, signs of depression. It's just that they're not naturally linked. So I think there's more study to be done on that particular topic.
So maybe with depression, along with some of the other symptoms, maybe consider it and look into it a little bit more deeply.
Yep, and I think that also, Roberta, I think it's about educating not only, patients and the lay population, but I think it's also really respectfully educating the medical community about, some of these things that we're learning are potentially correlated with a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer.
And how do we do that? Because I mean, nobody wants to offend their doctor, obviously. And years ago, we used to put them up on a pedestal, and if they said, "Go home, take 2 aspirins, call me in the morning," we did it and never asked. And now we are asking questions. But how do we educate them in a way that we don't offend them?
I mean, the pancreatic cancer advocacy, Let's Win Pancreatic Cancer is part of the World Pancreatic Cancer Coalition, and it's a very collaborative space. I mean, I've worked in other cancer spaces, and I have to say that the pancreas, the cancer advocacy space is really collaborative. It's like people really want to be a piece of the puzzle and a piece of helping really move the needle on this disease. We're really, as a collective community, trying to raise a lot of awareness publicly so that not only the broad population, but doctors, generalists, GI doctors are all more familiar. I think some of the high-profile losses that we've had in the last couple of years to pancreatic cancer, be it Alex Trebek, John Lewis, obviously Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think those high-profile figures that we've lost to this disease have most certainly and sadly drawn some attention to the disease. So I think it's really going to be through education.
I'm glad you brought that up because it seems like when we do lose somebody that is in the news or celebrity status, then you're hearing about it a lot. But then when we lose them, when they die, that dies along with them. What can we do to keep, I mean, we need to keep the conversation going, like with breast cancer and other cancers. How can we keep the conversation going?
You know, I think, I really sadly think that part of the reason that there wasn't a lot of public support in pancreatic cancer was because of the low numbers and the low survival rate. You know, when you think about breast cancer, luckily there are so many breast cancer survivors that are out there, you know, just raising awareness. And I think that as this disease sadly becomes on the rise to be one of the second leading cause of cancer death, I think we're going to see more and more increasing awareness and education about this disease. We're certainly working really hard, Roberta, as you know, to help educate the public.
Yeah, you really are, and I really enjoy you do see if I can get it right, Pan Chat on Twitter every month, right? I think so that's another way. But so what do you tell patients who have just been diagnosed with the disease? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so I think what we really tell patients, you know, on day one is we really want to get them the information they need to help get the best treatment options. There's so much science happening in the pancreatic cancer research space, and we need patients to take advantage of that. So whereas in other diseases, a clinical trial is a last resort, we need patients to know that a clinical trial should be a first thought. We also, now in the last couple of years, standard of care for pancreatic cancer allows for and encourages genetic testing. So all newly diagnosed pancreatic cancer patients should immediately have genetic testing. Because if you have a BRCA, some people refer to it as the BRCA mutation, that's a perfect example, and it's just one example because there are other genetic factors of a mutation, a germline, an inherited mutation, that there are other targeted therapies that could help that patient. So we really try to get patients right away to start thinking about getting the best treatment options, about how they can manage the disease, from nutrition, pain management, anxiety, and a whole host of other factors, because people really need to manage the disease in order to be able to be healthy enough to get the best treatment options. But the other thing that we also are really proud of that we do at Let's Win is we provide hope and inspiration, and I know that's something that you also do. We have a survivor video series, and you are one of our first. We have a monthly video series of survivors of 5+ years. And I'm really, really proud to say that we have over 65 survivors of over 5+ years. And I think that really is a very important factor for families when they get a new diagnosis.
Yeah, I have to agree with you because the one thing you hear a lot is, you know, people don't survive or survival is very low. And you do a wonderful job of sharing the survivor stories. And thank you. I've been very proud to be part of that. One thing too, I just kind of want to give you guys a shout out because when I was looking at your website, what I noticed is not only your website is awesome, but not only that, you also do your website in Spanish, which I have
Thank
seen.
you, Roberta.
I have seen other, other organizations, yes, they offer you the material in Spanish, but you actually have your whole website. You have a section there